Hi everyone, welcome to the Time Form and Sporting Live Royal Ascot preview for day 5. We have made it to the end of the week and it's a terrific day's action in store. I'm Ben Linfoot, delighted to be joined by Matt Brocklebank to talk through the action. And Matt, we've got an excellent Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes, a really good renewal with international challenges and horses that ran on Tuesday and the full mashings.
Yeah, it's a belting race. I think this is the race, the big sprints often attract the quality overseas runners, and this year this race hasn't disappointed at all. Despite all of that, despite the fact we've got obviously this Hong Kong horse Wellington, we've got Australian, we've got Americans in there, we've got plenty of quality, but Highfield Princess, the just trained not too far from here where we're recording today, is going to be topping the ratings on Time Form figures, and she's a few pounds clear. And as you say, she's backing up from Wednesday's fine effort in defeat in the King's Stand Stakes, and unlike that day, she doesn't have to give anything weight because she just struggled to give the £3 to the 3-year-old Bradsell, didn't she? Finishing second, ran right up to form, would you say?
Yeah, she certainly was close to her best form, wasn't she? And has the £3 sex allowance here, which probably helps her top the ratings. She's a terrific race mare, and obviously won the 3 Group 1s last summer. I just wonder, the one thing that's putting me off her today, for Saturday, is backing up quickly. Now,
is that an issue?
Well,
I'm not so sure.
Well, she took her racing well last summer, but 4 days is a difference, isn't it? This was an excellent effort when she won the Nunthorpe, running down the Platinum Queen at York last August. This wasn't long after she won in France, was it? 12 days.
12 days.
See, she can back up quickly, but 4 days is just a different question.
She's won after 6 days in the past as well. Back in 2021, and we're talking about low key stuff. She did actually try to back up after 3 days one time. She finished second or third, but I'm not totally convinced that the quick turnaround is a massive stumbling block for her. She just loves racing, doesn't she? She's got a real zest for the game. She loves this track as well, and we've seen.
She does,
time
but
and time again.
What, she won from 5 at Ascot. I know she won the Buckingham Palace Stakes, didn't she? But she was beaten in this race last year.
Yeah, she ran okay, didn't she? She ran pretty well. And again, we've got Artorias from last year's race, who also ran with credit and finished in front of her, and is a slightly bigger price on this.
Let's talk about him. He's the favourite, Artorias, and you can see why on his third in this race last year alone, and he ran on really well in the closing stages to dead heat for third. And then he was way too fresh and keen and pulled too hard, didn't he, in France when beaten after that. But he's a bit of a hostage to fortune, but I can see why he's favourite.
Yeah, he looks very, very solid to run his race, probably to run in the first 3 or 4. Whether he's going to quite get the race to sort of just fall in his lap, he might just need that. And I suppose he's looked as good as ever, whereas you're comparing some of these international stars, it is difficult. We've got Wellington in here as well, but Artorias, he's at least kind of won already this season. Earlier this year, he's just shown that he's still at that level, hasn't he? Whereas Wellington might just be potentially on the decline.
Out of the 2 international horses at the top of the betting, Artorias and Wellington, I prefer Wellington.
You do, don't you? Yeah. I mean, he's got some brilliant form, but we're going back maybe, a couple of years to that real top-class form? Yeah,
maybe. I mean, he beat Lucky Sweynesse, who is an absolute monster in Hong Kong, and he has got the better of him on every occasion this year. But you only have to go back to December when he beat him at the Hong Kong International Races meeting. So you're not going back that far, and these Hong Kong sprinters, they are on a high level. And I do think he's going to be a major force in this race.
Yeah, interesting. His trainer, Richard Gibson, he's sort of on record saying they're not coming over here for the laugh, are they? But he's handed in his licence. He's not going to be training over in Hong Kong anymore after this season. He's coming back to Europe, isn't he? I think he was born from Britain originally, wasn't he? And had some success.
Trained in France, didn't he?
Yeah. So,
do you prefer Wellington of the 2 international ones?
No, I think I'm with Artorias of the pair, but he just looks a bit too short for me. As you say, he needs everything to fall in his lap, and it's not necessarily going to be the case here with the pace angle as well.
Just quickly moving on, next 2 in the betting are Kinross and Sacred. I think Kinross is a brilliantly versatile horse, but my issue with him is the combination of 6 furlongs and fast ground. I think he's fine on the ground when it's over further, but this test of speed just might be a bit nippy for him for me.
Yeah, he's definitely more effective, isn't he, when the mud's flying? We saw it on Champions Day.
Or he's going over further on quicker ground.
The good ground's going to suit Sacred. It's a big day for her. I think before long we'll see her heading off to the breeding shed. So to get a Group 1 over 6 furlongs on her CV would be absolutely massive. And she looked sharp, didn't she? She looked really on it. And she has done this in the past where she just flashes real brilliance. But to do that, what she did at Linfoot when we saw her beat Sandrine in that kind of decent all-weather race a couple of months ago was impressive. And it came at a time just in May there when some of the Haggis horses weren't necessarily flying. So maybe she could just step forward again. Big day for her.
She needs a career best, doesn't she, to win?
She does, yeah.
Yeah. It's just a case of if she's good enough. Probably a similar question with Art Power, who has got brilliant form at the Curragh, but he never seems to back it up when it comes to Ascot after the Curragh, does he? And I just wonder if Ascot is his track. I know he's won here.
I'm amazed that people still sort of bang his drum, to be perfectly honest. I mean, he just doesn't light my fire for this race at all, Art Power. He's one of those horses that kind of people have been expected him to become a bona fide Group 1 horse, and he just hasn't quite done it for me, and I'm not sure.
I think he's dangerous if he settles well, because I think he's going to lead. I think he's going to blast out, and he's an important pace angle. And if he's not too keen and he settles well for Oisin Murphy like he did in Ireland, I think he could be dangerous. But it is a bit of a big if, and I think he's more of a pace angle in how he shapes the race than a betting proposition.
What else is going to be on it? Highfield Princess will be there.
Highfield Princess, we think. Run to Freedom, Henry Candy's horse, who's quite an interesting each way outsider at north of 20 to 1. He's a brother to Twilight Calls, who won this race a couple of years ago.
Good nick, isn't he? He comes on the back of that win at Salisbury.
And he's improving. He'll need to improve again to play a part, but he's maybe one to consider each way. And talking of that, shall we firm up some selections for the race?
Well, I'll be pretty quick because I haven't really got a bet in the race, unfortunately. We're focusing on these big Group 1s that aren't really getting me going, unfortunately. Wellington, yeah, one last hurrah for Wellington under Ryan Moore. I think of the pair, I'd be with Artorius. He's sort of due one in Britain, and I think just with that experience that he gained last year, just looks at potentially a more rounded horse this time around, and he's got that track experience now, which Wellington doesn't have yet. Yeah,
I'll put in a word for Rohan, who I think on his 3 really good wins at Ascot, 2 Wokinghams off marks of 109 and 112, and his Bengo Stakes win. I think all of that form gives him a chance here, but he absolutely needs a really strong gallop.
Yeah,
and
not sure.
You know, I wish it was last year when there was about 35 runners in this race, but we shall see. I think Rohan has got a chance if things fall his way. We'll move on, and we're going to talk about the Wokingham, but let's just quickly mention the Jersey Stakes, because I think you might have a fancy in this. Now, I was looking at it earlier and I thought it was a little bit of a head scratcher with plenty of imponderables, but you think you've found one?
Well, yeah, he'd be my bet of the day. This Car Shamar for Jessica Harrington. Jessica's obviously on the board already at Royal Ascot so far this season. He's only had 3 starts in his life, and he's shown real potential. Last year, bit of a write-off. He just had the one outing on softish ground and didn't show a huge heat, but came back at Dundalk, won very impressively over a mile, beat 2 or 3 subsequent winners that day, and then he was pitched into the Irish 2000 Guineas. I thought he ran really, really well. He kind of settled really sweetly on the inside. He was drawn in 1, and then just as High Royal started to weaken and Paddington came up on his outside, just got squeezed a little bit. He was just trapped in that pocket without being able to show that turn of foot, but in the end some of the horses, sort of stronger staying horses, came over the top of him and he finished sort of just out of the frame, but it was a real eye-catching run for me. I think he's about 12-14 to 1 for a Jersey Stakes, which the market is going to be dictated and dominated by Frankie Dettori's Mount Cove, who I had a bit of a pop at before he won at Haydock last time.
You keep on taking him on.
And we'll take him on again because he's rated 100 now. He's gone up £10. He's rated 100 after just getting an easy time of things at Haydock. Well, this Jessica Harrington horse, he's already rated 103, sitting on huge potential. So I'm amazed that he's such a big price.
Bet of the day, Cash Martin, the Jersey. Right then, let's finish with a look at the Wokingham Stakes, the big betting race of the day at 5 o'clock. Loads of runners to go through. We're going to have a look at a few of them. We'll kick off with the ratings in this Orazio for Charlie Hills, who's 126p, and you can absolutely see why that P's attached, because he's improving at a rapid rate of knots.
He's a monster, isn't he? Is that him pictured there as well? He's the shades of... Is it Forgotten Voice, the horse in this, the Roy Silks that came and won, was unbeaten for Jeremy Nozida and won the Hunt Cup a few years back.
Do you remember Laddie's Poker too?
Was that in the same
In the Roy Silks, in this race, come off a 600+ day layoff for Jeremy Nozida and Johnny Merton and landed a monster gamble.
Well, I think this horse could have been potentially a very, very skinny price if we'd had that rain around that was around kind of at the very start of the week. It isn't, it's quick, it's surely going to be too quick for him to show his best. The one time he's actually run on good to firm ground, he got a bit jarred up at York as a 2-year-old.
Bummed out, didn't he?
Well, he spent a year off the track after that.
Yeah.
So he's come back and he's looked brilliant. But again, we're talking about on good to soft and soft ground, and he's gone up in the weights. I think he might struggle. Could he be a non-runner? I'm not totally sure.
He's gone up £9, and I completely agree that when you combine his price and the hike in the weights and the fact that it's fast ground, I think we've got to look elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a couple well in here, haven't we? I've got my eye on Juan Lepin, but Apollo 1, he's what, £3 well in? You're keen on him?
He's £3 well in, yeah. For Richard Kingscote riding him again, and I backed him at Newmarket earlier in the season, and he ran a really nice race on his reappearance behind Probe. Off the same mark of 97, he ran even better at Epsom last time, where he was wide early and challenged late and was only beaten a neck by Badri, and he's £3 well in on the back of that. I think he's a thriving horse who's better than ever this season, and he might even rank higher later in the season. So he's certainly on the shortlist. Pretty
sure I put him up for this race last year. Just before we get back to one near the top of the market in Canjar, I will mention Juan Lepin because he's £1 well in under the penalty. And
you've been with him this season, haven't you?
Yeah, I haven't tipped him yet.
Have you not?
No. To be honest, Mick Appleby's horse has just been a little bit off colour potentially, and that has coincided with this horse running on softer ground, and he really does want it quick ground. He was a proper story last year. They picked him up rated 70 from Ed Dunlop's, and he ended the year finishing third off 92 in the Air Gold Cup, and he not unlucky that day, but he really was running on nicely at the end. He was a big eye catcher. Low key start to the season, as I say, coincided with that softer ground and the yard under the weather, and then just last week, Wednesday at Nottingham, and I had a close eye on the race because I'd tipped the Cox horse Lethal Nymph anti-post for the Wokingham, thinking he needed the penalty to get in. Turns out this horse has dotted up in the end, and he's got the penalty, and like I say, he just wouldn't have made the cut. He was really, really impressive. He was a bit sluggish from the stalls and just took a few strides to get organised, but when he came there, he arrived. He barely had a race in the end. It's quite hard to ease down a 6-furlong sprinter, but they were doing the best to sort of ease him down close home. I think he's got a massive chance. He's about 20 to 1, Juan Lepin, near the bottom of the weights as well. High draw. We're guessing a bit, aren't we? You'd quite like to. I might add one from the low stalls into the staking plan later on.
Well, let's have a look at another one from High Draw, because we've got VT of Canjar, William Haggis' horse, and if there's one horse who, is really unexposed and could just be ahead of the handicapper, it could be this one. He's in the Shadwell Silks, the blue and white on the far side. This is at Haydock last September, but this was a hint of what he can do.
I think he might be favourite. With drying ground, and Orazio's going to drift. This horse has a very obvious chance. His 3-year-old form last year is just absolutely bomb-proof. 12 months ago, last June, he beat Azure Blue 3 lengths, giving her a couple of pounds that day. Azure Blue's obviously come out and beaten Highfield Princess and the Duke of York, and his form's just superb. By the end of it, he was sent off favourite in the Air Gold Cup that I mentioned. He was a shade disappointment.
What was he? 9-2 favourite.
Didn't happen for him.
Bombed out in 20th, but that just shows you what was expected of him that day.
And do you not think he's just been brought along so steadily with the Wokingham in mind
Absolutely.
this year? He ran pretty well under. He wasn't punished close home at York. He ran okay. They're really tough, those races, but it was a nice comeback run. And then it was a smaller field, wasn't it, up in Scotland last time?
Hamilton, he ran really well in second to Edward Cornelius, running on as if there's more to come from him. So I think Canjar is definitely one to watch. We'll just finish by talking about that York race that Kandja reappeared in, because there's several strands of form there. Bielsa and Lethal Levi were first and second. They're both in this race. You quite like Lethal Levi?
Well, he's just bomb-proof, Lethal Levi. I know Carl Burke's been pretty amazed at his transformation into this real top-class sprint handicapper, but he just keeps delivering, turning up on the big day. If you've got place pots rolling, then Lethal Levi's got to be involved, I think. But just to wrap up my view on the race, it'd be Juan Lepan each way. Kandja definitely the horse to beat.
And I'll finish by just mentioning another horse from that yacht race that Bielsa won, because I thought Mr. Wagyu, he was 7th there, and then he went and was 3rd at Epsom after that, and just really looked like he'd come into the boil, and then ran a really disappointing race at Haydock last time. But if you remember,
for him, wasn't it? He's a good old boy, Mr. Wagyu, isn't he? 8-year-old now, and
he's an 8-year-old, but he's hardy and tough and really consistent. So it was disappointing to see him run below par at Haydock. But if you remember, the separated into 2 groups, and it just never got going for him, and I think he was eased down in the closing stages, and you can sort of strike a line through the run. The key thing with him is he's £5 lower than when he was 4th in this race last year, and
big price.
I think he's a big price at 20-1 and perhaps even bigger, so might chance him each way, Mr. Wagyu in the Wokingham. Best of luck if you're having a bet in that race. It's a really tough way to end Royal Ascot, but it's been a great week.